When an empath detaches, it rarely looks dramatic at first. It doesn't look like a fight, a goodbye, or a door slamming shut. It looks like slower replies, shorter conversations, less explaining, less rescuing. And that's why most people miss it. They think the empath is still there because the kindness is still there. But something deeper has changed. The overgiving is gone. The emotional chasing is gone. The silent self-abandonment is gone. What they're witnessing is not bitterness. It's the moment someone finally stops bleeding just to keep a connection alive. The truth is, an empath doesn't detach because they stopped loving. They detach because love started costing them their peace, their voice, and their sense of self. They got tired of carrying what they didn't create, fixing what they didn't break, and translating behavior that was never confusing in the first place. And when the shift finally happens, it feels quiet, almost calm, no revenge, no chaos, just clarity, the kind of clarity that says, I can care about you and still refuse to disappear for you. The deepest part, people often call that change cold because they were attached to the empath's availability, not their wholeness. But detachment is not cruelty, it's accuracy. It's what happens when someone stops negotiating with reality and starts trusting what their body has known for a long time. And once an empath reaches that point, they don't become heartless, they become honest. Welcome to Healing Mind, a space where we talk about emotional healing, self-worth, and the quiet truth behind why empaths detach. If this message speaks to you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Healing Mind for more deep, honest content that helps you protect your peace. The moment an empath starts pulling away, it usually doesn't look dramatic in the beginning. It looks like slower replies, shorter messages, and not checking in the way you used to. It looks like you no longer asking that extra question that once kept everything connected. Then one day something shifts in a way that feels strange, maybe even a little unsettling. The emotional pull is just gone. Not anger, not payback, not bitterness, just no pull. And what's happening inside you is often misunderstood. People may call you cold, but that's usually not the truth. Real detachment in an empath is rarely about becoming heartless. It happens when caring has turned into abandoning yourself, when love starts feeling like labor, and when kindness stops being a choice and becomes an automatic reaction that keeps hurting you. A lot of people think stopping caring means you stop loving, but that's not usually what's happening. More often, it means you stop doing all the emotional work by yourself. You stop being the one who keeps track of everything, fixes everything, and holds everything together. You stopped acting like the emotional caretaker for the entire relationship. You stopped carrying the whole weight while pretending it was normal. For an empath, that shift can feel intense because so much of your identity may be tied to being the one who tries harder, understands more, and gives more. When that role starts to fall away, it can feel like you're losing a part of yourself. But you're not losing yourself. You're actually stopping the pattern that made you disappear inside the relationship. You probably know this pattern too well. Someone hurts or disappoints you, and your body reacts before your mind can catch up. You feel it in your chest, your stomach, your face. But within seconds, you start explaining their behavior for them. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they had a rough past. Maybe emotions are hard for them. You become so quick at understanding their side that you step right over your own pain. Before long, you're apologizing for your reaction instead of addressing what they did. That isn't love. That's conditioning. That's your nervous system trying to preserve connection no matter what it costs you. It learned that staying close mattered more than staying true to yourself, so it keeps choosing peace on the surface while you quietly pay for it underneath. Here's the truth that changes everything. You did not care too much. You cared by yourself. And caring alone doesn't make you a better friend, partner, or person. It just makes you shrink. It makes you quieter, more cautious, more exhausted, and less like who you really are. So when you finally stop caring in that old way, what's really happening is your body is no longer willing to volunteer for that role. Your system reaches a point where it says, I can't keep repeating this. To other people, it seems sudden because they didn't feel the buildup. They didn't feel the repeated hurt, the constant overgiving, or the many times you swallowed your needs. They only notice the moment you stop pouring yourself out. They call it a change, but for you, it's the end of a long internal strain. It shows up in small moments first. You don't send the second text. You see the conversation fading and don't rush in to save it. You stop treating their silence like your job to fix. You don't write the extra warm message just to keep the connection alive. And for the first time, you let discomfort stay without sacrificing yourself to make everyone else comfortable. That isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's a sign that you're no longer confusing self erasure with love. You're not punishing anyone, you're just no longer overextending to maintain something they were not carrying with you. That's what real detachment feels like. Not dramatic, not loud, just deeply calm, a quiet refusal to abandon yourself again for the sake of being understood, chosen, or kept. People often react strongly when an empath detaches, and there's a reason for that. Many of them were never truly attached to you as a whole person. They were attached to your constant availability, your forgiveness, and your ability to explain away their behavior. They were attached to the version of you that made consequences disappear. So when you pull back, they feel something unfamiliar with you, uncertainty. They can't predict your response anymore. They can't count on you to smooth over tension. They can't rely on your empathy to make up for their inconsistency, and that uncertainty feels threatening to them, so they push harder. You may get messages like, "Are you upset? Why are you acting different? You've changed. You seem cold." It's not always about concern. Sometimes it's about losing access. If you stay calm, they may suddenly switch. They become sweeter, more understanding, more open than they've been in a long time. They may say all the right things and act kinder than ever. This is where you need one important reminder. Panic can look like effort, but it is not the same as growth. Panic creates intensity. Growth creates consistency. When someone is panicking, they rush toward you because they feel your distance and want things to go back to normal. When someone is truly changing, they show up differently over time, not just when they feel you slipping away. That difference matters. A temporary wave of kindness can feel healing when you've been drained for so long, but it does not always mean the pattern is gone. Watch what stays steady, not what suddenly gets louder. What's happening inside you goes deeper than a simple choice. Detachment is often a nervous system shift, not just a mental decision. If you grew up around emotional inconsistency or misattunement, you may have learned early that closeness had to be earned. You learn to become easy, helpful, and emotionally aware of everyone else. You learn to read the room, manage moods, and prevent conflict before it started. You became skilled at staying connected by staying small. Over time, that can make overgiving feel normal and self-protection feel selfish. So when detachment begins, it may feel unfamiliar at first, even wrong. But it's often your system finally recognizing that love should not require constant self-betrayal. It's your body learning that peace is not the same as silence, and connection is not meant to cost you your whole self. The quiet sign that you've truly detached is simple but powerful. You stop rehearsing. You stop replaying every conversation in your head. You stop planning the perfect message to fix the tension. You stop mentally defending yourself to someone who isn't even in the room. Their behavior may still be disappointing, but it no longer takes over your inner world. Your body stays more settled. Your mind feels less occupied. You don't need revenge, closure, or one final explanation to feel okay. You just see things clearly, and that clarity is enough. When they come back acting gentler than ever, don't let words alone pull you back into the old cycle. Stay grounded. Let time reveal the truth. If it's real change, it will remain. If it's panic, it will fade. Either way, your peace is no longer up for negotiation. You learn to be useful, agreeable, easy to handle, and mature before your age. You learn how to make other people feel comfortable, and somewhere along the way, that starts to feel like love. Being safe becomes a performance, and that performance becomes your identity. So later, when you stop doing it, guilt shows up immediately. You may feel cruel when you're only being honest. You may feel like you're abandoning people, when in reality you're finally refusing to abandon yourself. That's what detachment often is. Your body no longer confusing guilt with responsibility. Guilt is not always proof that you did something wrong. Sometimes it's just the alarm that goes off when you stop playing the role everyone expected from you, and when that role has defined your relationships for years, stepping out of it can feel unfamiliar, even when it's exactly what you need. In real life, detachment is quiet. It looks like noticing a change in someone's tone and not chasing after them to fix it. It looks like them canceling on you at the last minute and you not rushing to send a comforting reply just to ease their guilt. It looks like not performing emotional CPR every time someone wounds you. It looks like hearing, "I'm just busy," for the 10th time, and finally hearing what's underneath it. You are not a priority to them. And the strangest part is that when detachment happens, you often don't feel victorious. You feel calm, not happy, not angry, not triumphant, just calm. That calm comes because your nervous system is no longer sprinting to earn safety. The silence on your phone doesn't create panic anymore. It creates relief. And people misunderstand that kind of calm all the time. There's usually a very specific phase right before detachment fully sets in. Your body starts resisting the relationship before your mind can explain why. You see their name pop up and your chest tightens. You don't want to open the message because you already know there will be something to manage, something to decode, something to smooth over. You don't want to explain yourself one more time. You don't want to do the emotional labor required to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. Then one quiet day, it clicks. You can't unsee the pattern anymore. They show up when it works for them, not when it costs them. They're warm when you're easy, distant when you have needs. They want your gentleness, but not your honesty. They want your empathy, but not your boundaries. Once you see that clearly, the illusion falls apart. Detachment is often the death of a fantasy, but not the fantasy of love itself. It's the fantasy that if you just give a little more, explain a little better, or stay a little longer, they'll finally learn how to care for you properly. That's the part that breaks. And this is where many empaths either begin healing or slide back into old patterns. So here's something simple you can use right away. The next time you feel the urge to chase, explain, or fix, say one sentence and stop. I'm not available for confusion. If you want connection, be clear and consistent. Then do the hardest part, leave it there. Don't write another paragraph, don't explain your boundary, don't soften it to make it easier for them. Let it stand. If they respond with clarity, that tells you something. If they respond with anger, guilt, or silence, that tells you something too. This kind of response doesn't make you cold, it makes you visible. And the quiet sign that you've truly detached is not that you never think about them again. It's that you stop bargaining with reality. You stop replaying conversations, trying to find the perfect words that would have made them treat you better. You stop searching for a different version of yourself who could have handled it right so they wouldn't have hurt you. You stop asking everyone around you if you were wrong. Instead, you begin trusting what your body felt in the moment. That is real detachment. Because for empaths, the deepest attachment is often not to the person, it's to the hope that the pattern will change if you keep trying hard enough. When that hope finally breaks, something in you changes too. You become more honest, more grounded, and much harder to manipulate. And then comes the part that can feel deeply unfair. Once you detach, people often return, sometimes right away, sometimes weeks later. And they often come back as the exact version you begged for. Suddenly they're warm, attentive, apologetic, they say the right things, they sound self-aware. For an empath, that can hit hard because it feels like finally being seen. But this is where you protect your healing. Words are not the evidence, behavior is. More than that, consistent behavior when there is no pressure is the real proof. If they only change when they feel you pulling away, that may not be growth. It may be fear of losing access. So if they return, watch closely. Can they clearly name what they did without turning it back on you? Do they repair with actions, not just emotion? Do they respect your boundaries even when they're frustrated? Those answers will tell you everything. If the answer to those questions is no, then what looks like a reunion is really just a reset of the same old cycle. Another hard truth is this: many people don't actually miss you. They miss how you made them feel about themselves. They miss being forgiven quickly. They miss being understood without having to earn it. They miss the version of you that made their inconsistency feel harmless. So when you detach, They are forced to see themselves more clearly, and that can be deeply uncomfortable. Some people use that discomfort to grow, others try to pull you back into your old role so they don't have to face what changed. That's why detachment is bigger than a mood shift. It's a relationship earthquake. The moment your nervous system changes, the relationship has to reveal what it was really built on. And not every relationship survives that kind of truth. After detachment, you may feel numb at first, and that doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It often means your system is finally coming down after years of hypervigilance. When you stop constantly scanning, soothing, and anticipating, there's an empty space where all that survival energy used to go. That can feel like loneliness, but it's a different kind. The loneliness you felt while staying was the pain of being unseen while connected. This loneliness is what it feels like to return to yourself. And then slowly, your energy begins to come back, not all at once, little by little. You wake up with less dread. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You laugh without tension running underneath it. You notice your appetite again. You realize how long you've been holding your breath, and you start asking a better question. Not, how do I keep them, but how do I keep myself? That's when empathy becomes healthy, because empathy without boundaries is not love in its healthiest form. It's self-erasure disguised as goodness. Healthy empathy says, I can understand your pain without letting it trap me. It says, I can care about you without betraying myself to prove it. And that's the final truth that hits deeply when you're ready for it. When an empath stops caring, they usually haven't stopped caring about people. They've stopped caring about being chosen by people who only accept them when they disappear. They've stopped trying to earn love through suffering. They've stopped explaining their humanity to someone who keeps stepping on it. What changes is not their heart, it's their standard. They become someone who can still love deeply, but no longer at the cost of dignity, peace, and self-respect. That is not loss, that is healing. Here's the short version, clear and direct. The moment you detach, you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. You stop cleaning up messes you didn't make. You stop managing emotions, confusion, and inconsistency that other people should have been handling themselves. That's why some people panic when you pull back. They weren't connected to your full self. They were connected to your constant access, your patience, and your willingness to keep everything running. Your next step is simple. One sentence, no over-explaining. I'm not available for confusion. If you want connection, be clear and consistent. Then stop. Don't add more. Don't soften it. Don't turn your boundary into a speech. Let it stand. The point is not to control their reaction. The point is to stop disappearing just to keep the peace. The quiet proof that you've truly detached is not that they never cross your mind again. It's that you stop arguing with reality. You stop replaying every conversation trying to find the perfect wording that would have made them treat you better. You stop hunting for the version of yourself that could have prevented what happened. You stop asking everyone around you if you were wrong for feeling what you felt. Instead, you begin trusting your body's response in real time. You trust the tight chest, the dread, the exhaustion, the confusion, and the repeated disappointment. That is detachment. The deepest trap for an empath is rarely the person alone. It's the hope that if you try harder, the pattern will finally change. When that hope breaks, something in you gets stronger, clearer, and much harder to pull back into the same cycle. And then comes the part that can throw you off if you're not prepared. They come back. Sometimes fast, sometimes after a few weeks, but often with the exact version of themselves you asked for all along. They're warm, attentive, apologetic, and suddenly saying everything you waited to hear. For an empath, that can feel intoxicating because it touches the part of you that just wanted to be seen. But this is where healing needs structure. Words are not the evidence, behavior is. And the strongest proof is consistent behavior when they are not afraid of losing you. If they only improve when you step away, that's not always growth. It can be fear of losing access. So pay attention to three things. Do they take responsibility without blaming you? Do they repair with actions? And do they respect your boundaries even when they don't like them? If those things are missing, then what looks like reconnection is usually just the old pattern restarting. And there's another truth that can be hard to accept. Many people don't miss you. They miss the way you made life easier for them. They miss being forgiven quickly. They miss being understood without effort. They miss the version of you that made their inconsistency feel acceptable. So when you detach, your absence becomes a mirror. And some people don't like what it shows them. A few will grow, others will try to pull you back into your old role. That's why detachment is not only personal, it changes the relationship itself. It exposes what the connection was built on. And after that shift, you may feel numb at first, not because you're broken, but because your body is finally coming down from years of being on alert. When you stop scanning for problems, there's an emptiness where survival mode used to be. At first, that can feel like loneliness, but it's a different kind of loneliness. Before, you felt alone while still connected, unseen even while giving so much. Now you're alone in a way that brings you back to yourself. Slowly, your energy starts returning. You wake up with less dread. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You laugh without tension sitting underneath it. You feel hunger again, rest again, relief again, and your question changes. You stop asking, "How do I keep them?" and start asking, "How do I keep me?" That's where empathy becomes healthy. Real empathy includes boundaries. It says, "I understand your pain, but I won't live inside it." It says, "I can care deeply without betraying myself." So here's the truth that matters most. When an empath stops caring, they usually haven't stopped caring about people. They've stopped chasing people who only love them when they shrink. They've stopped trying to earn love through endurance. They've stopped explaining their worth to people who keep stepping over it. What changes is not their heart, it's their accuracy. They see clearly now. They stop managing what they didn't create. They stop negotiating with reality. They trust what their body has been telling them all along. And that's the shift. You don't become cold, you become honest. You become precise. If this spoke to something deep in you, like this video, subscribe to Healing Mind and comment accurate so I know this message reached the right people.